I'm Hamish Campbell. I've been working in radical media for the last 30 years doing grassroots technology. ActivityPub and the process that created it is great. It was done at a human scale by human beings talking to each other, and it went through a standards body. It's an open industrial standard. The open web was a wonderful thing. Looking back 10 years' time, we had the possibility for anyone really to do anything or be anything, and we had the tools to be real alternatives to traditional mainstream culture. This doesn't exist anymore. It's all been swallowed and devoured and sold out. Fashionistas. There's a lot of them in progressive politics. The problem is they just do what's expected, and in the current world, what's expected, Facebook and the rest of them are at Instagram, WeChat, they keep talking, go on Telegram, and it's all a disaster. It's all a dot-com. It's a failure for us, and it's a failure for our society. So we cannot trust the agendas that fashionistas put in progressive technology. Dot-coms. This comes from the dot-com boom, where everyone tried to make billions out of commodifying our data. Now the dot-coms are really conning us. Facebook and the rest of them are disasters for our society and for ourselves. For the last 10 years, alternative technology and radical grassroots movements have been building technology around the Encryptionist agenda. And this has been going nowhere. It's been a disaster. Indymedia was born open and died closed. We've had the last 10 years of closed technology, which hasn't got us anywhere. The world is dominated by the dot-coms, by the mainstream, by news which is just feeding us down to the end of the world. The recent actions by the protest group Extinction Rebellion have highlighted how climate change and our society's march towards it with no stopping is a death cult. The neoliberalism of the last 40 years is going to kill billions of people over the next 100 years, and it's going to devastate our societies, and we're doing nothing about it. The beauty of the open web, based on the link, was that it was open. It was an open system. All our current technology is closed. It's silos. Facebook's a silo, Instagram's a silo, all these chat apps are silos. We just live inside silos. Our attention and our data is captured and pushed to agendas, to death cult agendas, to destroy ourselves and destroy everything around us. We live in an absolute technological disaster. Rebooting grassroots media is one step towards a solution. A small step, but a step. Let's get on with it. Let's briefly look at how the project actually works. We're using Oxford IMC, which I was one of the founders of, as an example. Here we have an outline of a simple federated network. We have the Oxford IMC, we have an editorial collective, then we have the nodes of the network. At the top corner you have the Activist News, which is a news website. And because we know them and we trust them, it's a grassroots radical news network, their content is a trust link, so it automatically comes into Oxford IMC. And they trust us and know us, so our content automatically comes out and goes to a page or a sidebar on their site. We share content. We've got a Mastodon install. This was set up by some people in Oxford. It's full of all sorts of different subjects. So we have a moderated link. If someone puts the hashtag Oxford IMC on one of their posts, it goes onto the moderation queue on our site, and it may appear as a news item. All our content goes back to the Mastodon install as a character on Oxford IMC. We have a peer tube. This was created by one of the Oxford IMC admins, so we trust it. So anything published on the Oxford peer tube, which is tagged Oxford IMC, is trusted to appear on the newswire of the Oxford IMC site. We've got an Oxford Pixel feed, which was set up by some fashionable students. They publish all sorts of stuff, but we give them the option of publishing to Oxford IMC. We've got a local political blog, so WordPress. They're doing the ActivityPub plugin, so we trust their content, so when they publish it automatically appears on Oxford IMC, and when we publish it automatically appears on a side or a page on their site. We've got a local gardening blog. This was created by some of the Oxford IMC crew, but they publish all sorts of different stories. So, if it's got the hashtags Indymedia and gardening, it's trusted to go to Oxford IMC. And anything published on Oxford IMC which has those hashtags is trusted to go onto the sidebar or page on their site. We've got then the relationship with the larger aggregating sites such as UK Indymedia. The editorial collective trusts them, they trust the editorial collective, so anything published on UK Indymedia, which is tagged Oxford, boom, appears in the newswire of Oxford IMC. And anything we publish as an editorial story automatically appears on the newswire of UK Indymedia. So the content is spread in many different places and is linked hundreds of times and seen by thousands of different people in lots of different places. The project is more important for what it does not do than what it does. It only has 5 functions. It has link subscribe, it has moderate or trusted flow, it has rollback. If, for example, you had a trusted flow from a site and suddenly it started spamming you, you simply look where it started spamming you and you hit the rollback button and all those articles disappear. Boom. Very simple. It's trust first and moderate later. We've got editing the metadata. This is a complex subject because this is what actually shapes the flows and moves information from one place to another. I'm not going to deal with that here because it's a hard thing to explain. And then we've got published content. You can publish from any of the 20 or 30, 50 sites which are part of the network, or you can publish on the Indymedia site itself if you want to. In this example, we're just actually rebooting a local Indymedia site, Oxford IMC. So I'm just going to take you through how the site used to work, and we're pretty much going to rebuild it as it was because it worked very well. Top, we've got the banner. Down the side, you've got the newswire, which is where trusted content just appears automatically. In the center, you've got collective articles. This is where the editorial collective takes the content, the photos, the audio, the video, the text from the newswire and turns it into editorial outreach content. News stories, basically. On the other side, you've got links, which link to all the other Indymedia sites and link out to the other projects. At the bottom, you've got process. It's the about, editorial guidelines, etc. Then actually on the edge, you've got the moderation queue, where actually admins can come in and just moderate content through, or they can have a discussion about it using the tools of the site to actually come to a consensus whether that link or that story should be on the site or not. Let's talk about security for a moment. As the original site was actually torn apart by disagreements about this. It was started open and died closed. But, we're going to reboot here, the open part, but the closed part has value, so we're also going to reboot that. To do that, we have 2 approaches. The first one is we're going to put a bridge in a pub to secure Scuttlebutt. So on your mobile phone, you can publish stories to Scuttlebutt, which will then be bridged into ActivityPub and appear on the site. And secondly, we're going to have a help page on how to do secure publishing by Tor. How to set up a pseudo-anonymous email account, a pseudo-anonymous account on the site and publish pseudo-anonymously. The ideas in the Open Media Network. In the original project, these ideas were all part of the project, but they weren't actually spoken out loud. So here we're actually going to put them in at the foundation. Firstly, PGA hallmarks. It's a simple political statement to keep the radical grassrootsness in place. It was set up over a number of years by people talking throughout the world and coming together in gatherings and coming up with a single political statement for a movement, the anti-capitalist movement. Then we've got the 4 opens, which is simply open source development codified. We're rebooting the Indymedia project using the tools of the Open Media Network. Indymedia was a huge federated news network which at the height in 2000, 2001 was the same outreach on the web as the BBC and other mainstream medias. It was hundreds of sites in nearly 100 countries all around the world, all with media teams producing grassroots news. Why did Indymedia fail? It lasted for quite a while. It was a very successful project. In its early days, it was naively open, and because of that, it took over the world. It expanded and grew and just spread everywhere. And thousands, tens of thousands of people got involved. It died a closed project, ossified, closed, encrypted, and and I can give you 2 examples of how this happened. I'll talk about the UK Indymedia, even though there was Indymedia different experiences in many countries. In the UK, they decided there was a big argument about federation. Should they be a silo or should they be a network? Because the UK had 5 or 10 sites and a UK site. And this was never really resolved. In the end, they decided to create RSS, to create an RSS-based network aggregating the content. The problem is that they had kind of a geek problem. They wanted to do better, they wanted to do different, so they created an incompatible RSS to everybody else, so it talked to nobody. Nobody used it, and it faded and didn't do the job. The second reason for internal politics why it failed, again, it was encryption, it was security, it was a desire for control. They wanted encryption certificates for SSL so they could encrypt the site. The problem was they're radical grassroots technologists, so they didn't want to go through any corporation to do this, so they did self-signed certificates. And for years, the UK Indymedia site, anytime most people, 99% of people would go to it, they'd get a scary pop-up on their browser saying, do not come to this site, it is untrustworthy, it is untrusted, and you had to click through a maze to actually get to the site to publish or read your news. This was deeply problematic. Internally also, we had process problems. The process ossified. So together, all these three factors in the UK internally made the project unusable, it made it off-putting, and it blocked the processes needed to change it. The geeks who implemented all these things, they all thought they were doing the right thing, because they were. They just had no idea they were running an open media project. Their desire for control actually turned into something completely unusable. It died soon after. Up grew Facebook and all the social networking, which promptly replaced it. And that was the heyday of the open web. We learned a lot from the failure of Indymedia. From the UK perspective, we learned that the geek problem, the desire for control and certainty, are incompatible with open media projects. We learned that standards, open industrial standards, are key to the success of networks. Process needs to be kept loose and at a human scale. It shouldn't scale up into this great big structure which sets into concrete and nobody can do anything, apart from the process geeks who have no idea what's going on, but they have their perfect process which nobody can use. What did we learn from the failure of Indymedia? We learned that open standards are really important, so ActivityPub is the great standard to base a reboot on. Open source development is a fantastic basis for any project. So, Indymedia was kind of based on the 4 opens, but it was never really spoken. So this time we're going to speak them out loud at the base of the project. What's the 4 opens? Open data, open source, open industrial standards, and open process. The simple working of most open source projects. Rebooting of Indymedia, we're going to create a federated database of redundantly stored news objects which link back to the source. This will be connected by trust links based on folksonomy tags, flows of news objects. And it'll simply be trusted, the objects appear, moderated means they go into a moderation queue, or not linked, i.e. you don't get them. At the core of this, there will be the whole idea of sites federating to each other, the act of federation. The accepting of a flow of news will it'll be a network it'll be a web of news flows, from trusted or moderated links, and they will simply appear on your site if you trust them, or they'll go into a moderation queue. This will work through the network, so you'll have small sites at the bottom which will publish original content, you'll have middle sites which will deal with subjects, and then you'll have top sites which will deal with general news. And you can access it at whatever level you like. You can work at whatever level you like. And each site will feed to the other. At the base of this project, we're agnostic. Data is just data. We're just going to use protocols which allow exchange of data. ActivityPub is a great example of that. Open data is another. RSS is probably the bedrock of it, because we can bring in all the legacy news items via RSS. So this is the basic idea of the open media network, which is the code underlying this reboot. It's an exciting project. It's the news part of the Fediverse. We really desperately do need a news reboot, because currently we've just got crap. If you want to help make this happen, come to unite.openworlds.info and join our development site. It's 4 opens.